Footballers Sunday Live.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Sunday Live. The football is flowing. The fantasy points, they're growing. It's a nice little rhyme to start off the Sunday. How's everybody doing today? I'm your host today, Mike, the Fantasy Hitman Wright from the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible Sunday. It is, it's time. This is when we're looking at our records and things are starting to shape up. Do we look like a playoff contender? Do we look like a team that needs to go and add a piece or two through trade, or hopefully we hit on something off of the waiver wire? But it's that type of day. An 11-7 current score is at least what I'm seeing from the Jaguars and Bills, because of course, this is preposterous. The Jags keep getting into the red zone and they have 11 points, and it's the Buffalo Bills through the 4 weeks, one of the highest scoring teams since the 70s, and here they are with just 7 points. Hey, it's football. Let's get into the news.
The big picture.
All righty, Derek Carr is going to continue to put us all through emotional and physical pain because he is going to play despite the injury to his shoulder. We'll see how he does this week. Last week, he did bad. Kenny Pickett, from potentially season-ending injury to weeks-long absence to I'm going to play football on Sunday. He won't have his mobility, but he's going to play. Jimmy Garoppolo is expected to start on Monday night. He has been going through the concussion protocol. I believe he is cleared, so I expect him to play. At the running back position, welcome back, Mr. Jonathan Taylor. He is going to be active. He got himself the extension that he wanted from the Indianapolis Colts. It seems like a win-win for the team and the player. Now, if I have Taylor, I'm going to play him. But this isn't full-time Jonathan Taylor. I expect a timeshare. JT hasn't played football in a very, very long time. And he was injured for the preseason and the training camp. So he will be worked in probably slower than fantasy football managers really want. Again, it's still a top-tier elite player who, like week one, when you saw Breece Hall on limited carries, had that 80 or so yard carry. Jonathan Taylor is that type of a player, so I'm probably going to play him. Jahmyr Gibbs, yikes. He showed up on, I believe, Friday, all of a sudden on the practice report with a hamstring injury. They said, he immediately got listed as questionable, went to doubtful, and he will be out. David Montgomery, my goodness, this is a massive opportunity for him. Saquon Barkley continues to be day-to-day, but he's not going to play football this weekend. Apparently it was a high ankle sprain, so Jason brought up the numbers of either generally with a high ankle sprain you miss 0 or you miss at least 3 games. This will be 3 games for Barkley. Ramondre Stevenson, who was limited all week in practice with, I think it's a thigh, but he is going to play. Justice Hill is going to play. And for the Ravens, it will be Gus, Justice Hill, and Kenyon Drake. Melvin Gordon and Keaton Mitchell were not activated and brought up to play. So it will be those 3 running backs. Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos, he is a game-time decision. He's an afternoon game, so you're not going to know for sure. I'm leaning that he is not going to play. They do have another game on this Thursday. So there's a chance that they just say, hey, Javonte, sit down. And on top of that, he's a really tough start anyways. He certainly affects your confidence in playing, in spot starting, Samaje Perine or McLaughlin. But we will see this afternoon. Aaron Jones is listed as questionable. He's going to play, I think. Elijah Mitchell will be out once again for the San Francisco 49ers, meaning it will be a whole lot of Christian McCaffrey. The matchup is not as juicy for Christian McCaffrey, so we probably will not get 4 touchdowns. Maybe we just get 2. But we can all dream. Amon-Ra, he will be out for the Detroit Lions with that abdomen. Really, really hoping we do not hear anything about a hernia, because that would be very disheartening. Jameson Williams, though, for the Detroit Lions, he will make his appearance after the suspension was reduced for the gambling situation. Do remember, though, Jameson had the suspension, but he also had a hamstring injury heading into the season. So he has been dealing with that. He is expected to play limited snaps. Are you willing to fly with Jameson Williams? He's a big play type of a guy. Carolina has been decimated at their secondary, so there's certainly worse things that you could do on a Sunday morning than bet on that type of a talent and that speed hitting on a long play, but it's sketchy. Josh Reynolds will play for the Lions as well. Devontae Adams, he is listed as questionable. Man, I don't know that I have a true read on this. You know, essentially missing practice the whole week, the Monday night game. You know, that is such a tough choice. I mean, if you're going to ride with Adams, you have to have some type of pivot ready. I mean, maybe it's Renfro. I mean, there's just it's not great, but just make sure you are prepared. T. Higgins not expected to play. Thank you, Cincinnati. Afternoon game. T. Higgins just sitting on people's benches. You can't move him to out with his broken ribs. He's not going to play. Odell Beckham will return for the Baltimore Ravens, and Luke Musgrave is in. That's all the big headline news, except for, I forgot, because it's not like there's nothing official about it, but if you're on the Twitter sphere, which I highly recommend, that's a great place to be on a Sunday morning trying to get all the breaking news. Something weird is going on with Chris Olave. He was spotted working out with trainers. He looked like he was favoring his ankle, and Derek Carr's already hurt. Then the reports come out. No, he's good to go. He's going to be active. So that's just something to pay attention to. If you have like a really strong option, maybe you're willing to bench Chris Olave. Olave to me is a type of a stud player that I'm going to play him through injury, but you have the double dose because the quarterback is hurt. Maybe he's hurt. I don't know. It's just something I'm trying to bring to your attention so you can make the best decision that you can make for your team. Yeah, so go check that out on Twitter. We're going to head into the computer machine, thefantasyfootballers.com. That's where our rankings are right now. I've been in the lab working on them all morning. We have a start-sit tool over there. You can go, because I can't talk about every single player on this podcast. This is trying to get the biggest and, the real headlines and talk about it. But start-sit tool is available to you. Player X versus player Y. We let you know a bunch of things, bunch of variables that are going into the rankings. And we also take a look at, I got ahead of myself. If you want to support this show, Start-Sit Tool can be unlocked to a 4-player Start-Sit Tool. Jointhefoot.com. Get an extra podcast, get all of our tools and things like that, and you get to support this show. Keep Owl employed, who Owl has had himself a morning. When computers and programs that you rely on, they decide to change how they name stuff, and it breaks everything. So the fact that we are live right now, this was Al Borland. He is a sweaty mess back there. Are you able to talk it out, Al?
I'm finally, my heart rate's down to 120 now, so I think I'm good. But yeah, it's been a morning.
I just stayed out of his way and let the man cook. He got it done, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we are here. But anyway, so the start-sit tool, we gather the information. We see who the trending players are, and because those are the biggest decisions, and we're going to get into those right now.
He's so hot right now.
All right, Al, besides you and your body temperature, who is hot right now?
Well, this one makes me laugh because it's the number one question most asked on our website. And I think the answer is obvious to me, but I'm curious. And the people are apparently curious. So are you starting Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua?
Oh, I'm starting Cooper Kupp.
Okay.
Yeah, but to speak specifically to that situation, the reports that we are getting are what we have been kind of theorizing on the podcast, that the Rams are throwing the ball so much, and Puka and Cooper do different things for this offense, and they're at least saying both of these guys are going to have opportunity to eat. I think they will. You don't do what Puka is doing through 4 weeks with no support. I mean, he came in as a day 3 rookie, dominates the snaps, dominates the targets, and produces. You don't have that, and all of a sudden that player is just like, well, we got Cooper Kupp back. Thanks, kid, for your service. Like, no, the Rams found somebody. So it's going to be two great weapons. But if I have to choose between the two of them, I mean, I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp. But it's I understand the question because like Cooper, who has not, just like Jonathan Taylor, he has not played in a long time. I'm not expecting as much limitations on Cooper Kupp's playtime as I am for Jonathan Taylor, but I'm going to play Cooper Kupp. He's the touchdown machine. Puka hasn't shown the touchdown prowess through 4 weeks. The touchdown prowess that Cooper Kupp has. Who's next?
All right, Tank Dell is a guy that seems to be trending. I'll give you a few names, and you can let me know who you're starting. Tank or Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Romeo Dobbs.
Okay, so I'm going to go with Zay Flowers against Pittsburgh. Wide receivers have absolutely been crushing them. I still believe, even with the rest of the team back, the wide receivers back for the Baltimore Ravens, that Zay Flowers will remain the number one wide receiver, not the number one read. That's Mark Andrews, but the number one wide receiver for the team. I still think it's Zay Flowers, so I'm going to go with him. Tank Dell against Atlanta or Addison. So I have Addison lower in my rankings, but he's so volatile, man. To show you the floor, you found it. You found the floor last week. It is called 0, which is just devastating. Tank Dell did not have a great week this past one after, the couple hot games. I still believe in Tank Dell. And I think that he is a safer play than Jordan Addison. And Tank Dell does have himself a ceiling. We saw that with the kind of the broken play a few weeks ago. I am going to play Tank Dell. He's a full-time player. Jordan Addison is still not a full-time player. I don't know if he will become one at any point during the season, but he is a wide receiver who's stuck in 11 personnel as the third guy. KJ Osborne is still playing over Addison. I'm sure there are plenty of football guy things that can point out why Addison is not on the field. For the guy who lives at home, types up fantasy football stuff in the basement, it's very strange that Addison is not on the field more. But I'm gonna go Tank over Addison. And who was Romeo Dobbs?
Yep.
Oh, I'm playing Dobbs. Romeo Dobbs against Las Vegas. Let's go. It's a great matchup. Dobbs is so wild because I feel like nobody wants to play him. I'm looking in the mirror too. Like, Romeo Dobbs has been on my bench in League of Record this whole season, and Mike, is this the week I put Dobbs in? Oh, I don't know. He's forced into my lineup now with T. Higgins being out, but I'm like, well, that's Romeo. I don't know about Romeo Dobbs. But the guy's been like a top 12 wide receiver 3 or 4 weeks. Like, what does he need to do? And he's got a great matchup.
But we got Christian Watson coming back too. So.
Yeah, I that's what it is. Like, with Romeo Dobbs, we keep being like, he's great. Yeah, but there's been big buts every single week for Romeo Dobbs.
Like Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Sir Mix-a-Lot style, yeah. So maybe at some point you just go, Romeo Dobbs is good, and the offseason hype machine was correct. All right, who's next?
All right, we're going to move to the running back position. A lot of people asking about Matt Breida. Would you start Matt Breida or Jaylen Warren?
Oh, man. Okay, so Matt Breida, he gets that Miami matchup. Jaylen Warren gets to take on division rival the Baltimore Ravens. Thank you. Matt Breida is just – Jaylen Warren is a better player, but with Saquon Barkley out, if I have to go for it, I'm going to play Matt Breida. If I just need a guy that I'm going to get some steady points from and won't kill me with a really, really low score, I'd go with Jaylen Warren. But that's tough. That's Yep. I mean, it depends on how you play fantasy football. I'm a risky feller, so I might go with Matt Breida and just hope I stumble into 2 touchdowns. I don't think 2 touchdowns is on the docket for Jaylen Warren. Who's next?
What about Matt Breida or Jalil McLaughlin?
I'm going. Oh man. So again, this is I don't know if Breida's an afternoon game off the top of my head because you won't know about Javonte.
Breida's a morning game.
Okay. So you kind of have to make that decision for yourself. Again, I think Javonte will be out. Javonte being – and if Javonte's playing, I'm not saying like, oh, yes, I'm pumped to play Javonte Williams. That's not what I'm saying. But if Javonte plays, McLaughlin is now in a 3-person timeshare situation for the Denver Broncos where – oh, man. Who was the other name? It was Javonte and who? I started thinking about Burrito again.
Jalil?
Oh, yeah, or McLaughlin. Okay. Yeah. I don't really want to play McLaughlin. I don't want to go that way.
All right, let's move over to the quarterback position. C.J. Stroud or Trevor Lawrence?
Trevor Lawrence is already done playing football for the week.
Oh, you're right. Sorry about that. That's what I get for putting these together during my sweat fest. Let's go
right.
C.J. Stroud or Joe Burrow.
Okay, there we go. That's a real decision. My son is legitimately making that decision right now, and he said, Dad, what do I do? I mean, he really – no, I did that, but he didn't say that. He says, I hate Joe Burrow, and I'm never playing him again. So he is rolling with C.J. Stroud. We got some reports that Joe Burrow – I believe he was off the injury report. He still is dealing with that calf situation, and I think we're a couple weeks away, assuming we don't re-aggravate it again, which he did just 2 weeks ago, which I do believe has certainly led to this problem. The Bengals offensive line, that was a massive issue last week, but it's also like Joe Burrow knows that the line is a problem, and he can't move. So I think that's why we're seeing that low ADOT. I would play Stroud because I don't think this is a full Justin Fields versus the Denver Broncos. The Cardinals are okay. They're not good, but they aren't as terrible as it seemed like they were going to be at the beginning of the season. And Stroud has been playing he's been playing some great football. So I'm going to go with C.J. Stroud by just a touch.
Okay, and what about Joe Burrow or Josh Dobbs?
That we have to laugh the pain away, ladies and gentlemen. Our quarterback that we drafted in round 4, round 5, I don't know. Or, Josh Dobbs, who got traded to the team like a week before the season started. The guy, and Josh Dobbs is playing better. I'm playing Josh Dobbs. Football is ridiculous. Yeah, I'm going to play Josh Dobbs. The guy's putting up 40 to 50 rushing yards a week. They're playing great. The Bengals are totally dysfunctional right now. I mean, Wilson is breaking out for the Cardinals, and Hollywood is playing one of the sneaky, quietest, good fantasy seasons right now. Like, he's been very usable, and it feels like he's not. It's like kind of like Romeo Dobbs. You're just like, I don't. But he's producing. So I'm gonna play Josh Dobbs. Dobbs over Joe Burrow, and I'm deleting this immediately from the internet so people don't know.
All right, Mike. Let's get into the people.
All right, here we go.
Stardom, set 'em.
All right. Reminder: the rankings, thefantasyfootballers.com. Go check those out. Steven wants to know Josh Dobbs or Dak. I'm going to go with Josh Dobbs in that situation. They haven't needed Dak. He's against San Francisco. The low ADOT is, I think, what is really destroying Dak Prescott having fantasy value. So I'm going to go with Dobbs there. I'm going to take the rushing upside and all the other stuff. Let's see. Adam Hector wants to know JT or Alexander Mattison. And, of course, because this is how things work, Madison is literally one spot ahead of Jonathan Taylor for me. We're talking RB 20 and 21 in a half-point scoring format. I'm going to go with Madison there. Both players could end up in a much tighter timeshare than we are expecting, but Madison has looked very, very good for 2 weeks. It hasn't turned into huge fantasy production just because he's not scoring, but watching him, he looks so much better than he did in those first couple weeks. I think that they keep giving him the ball. So I lean Alexander Mattison slightly. And Tennessee is such a tough it's a tough matchup for the Colts on the ground. Next question comes in from Colton. Says Debo, Dobbs, or Waddle in a full point PPR. Okay, so the full point PPR. So Dobbs is in play because of that. Debo, totally a decoy weapon this past weekend. He may still be because he is not 100%, especially against Dallas. That's such a tough situation. Waddle will be back. I am going full PPR. I think Dobbs is your floor play and that Waddle is your ceiling play. Dobbs does have a ceiling. I mean, has a multi-touchdown game already. So I lean Waddle just because of, look, it's Miami and the speed and the upside there. But Dobbs is not a bad play versus those other two guys this particular week. Next question is from Brian, who says, this is a rough one. Hollywood Brown or Nico Collins in a full point PPR. I'm going to stick with Nico. I'm going to stick with Nico against Atlanta. I mean, the matchup is mid, but Nico has just been – we have like kind of that one blip where Nico wasn't amazing. Yeah, but I'm going to stick with him. I'm going to stick with him in Stroud. Matthew says, is Olave's ankle worrying? Yeah, I touched on the top of the show. It is worrying. It's not – like I'm not pulling him off the field for really low-end options, but if I have – someone, like Nico, Jacoby Myers, Hollywood Brown, Garrett Wilson, I'm going to start those guys over over Chris Olave because there's just so many unknowns, including Derek Carr's shoulder. Eric, this one's so hard. DeAndre Swift or the restricted list, Breece Hall against the Denver Broncos. Man, I am going to go, that is so outrageously tough to have both of those players. I know the matchup is so good. It is so good for Breece. And those comments, I mean, if you got Breece on your team, you're drooling. You're just so excited to see what happens this week in a very plus matchup. But because Swift has been so excellent, I'm going to play Swift, and I'm going to let Breece Hall show me. I can't believe you have to make that decision between those two guys, and one of them has to be on your bench. What a wild time to be alive. Next question. Abstricku. Tank Dell or Josh Reynolds? I think that's actually a fair question with all the injuries to the Lions players and the injuries to the Carolina secondary. Oh man, I'm gonna go with Tank Dell though. I'm gonna stick with Tank Dell on that one. That's a very tough decision. I think that's very, very close. Jacob wants to know Fergalicious or Darren Waller, talking about the tight end position in a full point PPR. I'm going to Waller one more time with the juicy matchup against the Miami Dolphins. If we talked about it on the show, but if Waller doesn't come through with something of that, we could just be like, okay, we can settle ourselves down and say they figured something out. I think it was Daniel Jones, but they were talking about it. I got to get Darren Waller the ball. I mean, it's one of those weird no-duh things, but sometimes the game gets away from you and you're so overwhelmed and the game plan falls apart. I mean, look at Andy Reid all the time. Had so many games of like, oh, crap, I need to get the ball to Jamal Charles, like one of the best running backs of all time. A coach forgets to get him the ball. These things happen. So I'm going squeaky wheel. I think that Darren Waller I think he's a strong play. But again, if it's a disaster this weekend, then it's a full loss there on Darren Waller is what it's going to feel like. Tanny24, Allen Lazard or Michael Wilson. Deliciously terrible decision that you have to make here. Lazard, I think, had the touchdown this past week. He's in the same great matchup as Garrett Wilson. But I'm going to go with Michael Wilson at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's see. We are almost up against the clock here. Next one says, John says Puka or Romeo Dobbs in a half PPR. There we go. I'm sitting Dobbs for Puka. We did it. where I feel confident putting Dobbs back on the bench where he belongs. I think. I don't know. But there we go. Yeah, but look, if you have Puka, you're playing Puka. I mean, it's like he is still in my top 10 here, or like right around my top 10 for rankings. I mean, I would have to have such a strong play ready to go that I'm going to sit Puka down, even with the return of Cooper Kupp. A couple more here. Troy Padgett says Cam Akers or McLaughlin. All right, so for that one, I might go with McLaughlin. Akers had some touches this past week in his first game for the Vikings. I saw someone break down every single one of the Akers touches, and it was funny just how he had yards, but it was like he was bad. So it was one of those really weird things where the production is good, but you're watching the player on film and they're bad. So we'll see how much Minnesota took out of watching those things, if they thought the same thing that I thought. Let's get out of here on this. So Brennan, Jaylen Warren or Stevenson, full PPR. I'm going to stick with Stevenson in that one, regrettably. He's still the main guy in PPR. Hopefully we'll get some more receptions in this tougher matchup. And Brody says Madison or Burrito. I'm going to go with Alexander Madison on that one pretty handedly. So that's going to do it. TheFantasyFootballers.com. That's where the rankings are. I'm going to go jump into those and make sure they are exactly where I want them heading into the weekend. Good luck, everybody. I know it's a big week. Unless you're me, and I already lost on Thursday night. But for you, I wish your enemies nothing but the worst. And remember to keep it beautiful. Mwah! Goodbye. See you tomorrow.